Patois with Catherine Dollison, where voice meets creative impact.
All right, thank you for joining me today. What we're going to be doing today is walking through a platform that you would use for sound editing or voiceover editing. I mean, that is sound, but you can use this for both instrumental tracks or vocal tracks. And this platform is called Audacity. Now, I recommend Audacity to anybody who is a beginner or budget conscious sound engineer or a voiceover artist. And the reason why is very simple, because it's free and it also has all the gadgets and gadgets that you would have in other platforms. Not all of them, but a good amount of them. Enough for you to be able to kind of like bruise your knees and bump your head and figure things out before you go for a pay-to-play platform. You know, if you are a student of mine, you would have gotten separately in an email the different platforms that exist and their monthly subscriptions or their pricing and everything like that, so that you understand the different tiers that you get to. Let's just say, you know, you start making $80,000 a year doing voice acting. During that time, it may be a good idea for you to upgrade. So let's go ahead and jump right into it. I'm going to share my entire screen, share some audio, and we shall begin. All right, so this is the Audacity platform, and what we're going to be trying to do is understanding how to capture clean professional audio. So what that means is I'm going to be going over things such as peak, such as acceptable levels, and then going through essentially how you would use Audacity to do things like, let's just say, figure out how to normalize audio, figuring out best practices for recording, figuring out what punch and roll means if you're doing voice acting, and understanding how to export projects versus exporting files. So in addition, I'll also be kind of going through how to review your audio. So this is I'm going to go ahead over to the left and put this back down to 0. This is a file that I put together for, I believe it is for the fitness client in a previous video. And this is going to be, I think, a recipe for barbecue lentil stuffed sweet potatoes. All right, so let's go ahead and take a listen.
Hi y'all, today on Meal Prep Monday, we are doing lentil stuffed sweet potatoes.
Okay. Now, what I want you to focus on right now when I'm playing is right up here where the sound bar is. Where does that fall here? Okay.
Hi y'all, today on Meal Prep Monday, we are doing lentil stuffed sweet potatoes.
Okay. So we're seeing it fall right around we're seeing it fall right around this 30 area, a little bit higher. This is very counterintuitive, but the closer audio gets to 0 with these platforms, the louder it is, so that was something that took me a little while to learn. But yes, so acceptable level around 30. With the highest, the loudest you ever want to be, it's usually right around that -12, -6. And even then, that's pretty bad, because what you'll see, and I'll go ahead and turn, what I'll do is I'm going to manipulate the volume over here on the left-hand side, all the way up to, let's just say, -36, so we can see how loud it is.
Even with that, I was not super happy with.
Okay, right. So you see, when it gets into this red zone, it's no good. Let's go ahead and see if we can get it into an acceptable zone by putting it maybe at 10 decibels.
Even with that, I was not super happy with the way
All right.
the avocado sauce turned out. So you're more than welcome to try your own variation.
So what we basically went over here was understanding, where you want the volume to kind of drift around when you're speaking at a normal speaking voice volume. That's -30. If you're being super loud, where you would like it to kind of peak, you want it to stop right at -12. That's in that nice yellow zone. And when you've gone too far, which is when you're starting to get by -6 or 0, you're blasting it out. It doesn't sound good. And actually, if I go ahead and run it back and you listen.
Even with that, I was not super. Even with that,
you're distorting the hell out of your voice. So it's no good, and no sound engineer will have you. I can guarantee you that. Please do not send a file like this to a sound engineer, ever. All right, so now we're going to go ahead and go over some other best practices. You'll see a lot of super fun things like effects in your drop-down menu for Audacity. just a quick basically best rule of thumb is you really don't want to use any of these. Essentially what you'd like is audio that sounds good enough on its own, and then allow the audio engineer to manipulate it. So for any of you that are interested in voice acting, most of the time, most publishers, except for one, and I won't name them because I don't know if they've changed their recording specs, but most of them would prefer that you send over, not prefer, most of them will demand that you send over a raw audio file that has not been processed. But for the sake of us understanding this program, I'm going to show you some different processes you can do to your file. The first thing, which is probably the most widely used, I would say would be noise reduction. All right, so we're going to go ahead and these are our drop-down menus. For Audacity, we're going to go to Effect, okay? And we're going to go to Noise Removal and Repair. You're going to see a noise reduction option here. Now that we know where that lives, I'm going to go ahead and select a very small sample of audio. Real quick, this, not advisable. What you really should be doing is having about 10 seconds at least of noise. Unfortunately, I've already edited this. So this is what we're working with. This is what we're going to do. But let's pretend that this is 10 seconds of audio that is just the noise, the ambient noise that fills a room. Okay. So we're going to go ahead and take a sample of that. So we'll go back to Effect. We're going to go to Noise Removal and Repair, and we'll go to Noise Reduction. Now, what it's going to do is give you an option to get a noise profile. Get noise profile of the 10-second clip. And then we're going to go ahead and do a quick key, which is Control A. That selects everything on the file. And we'll go to Effect again. We'll go right on down, Noise Removal and Repair again, go to Noise Reduction. All right, a couple of things here. Please do not try to adjust these if they say 6 all the way down. This is going to be the most helpful for what you're trying to do, which is take out that ambient room noise and just isolate your voice, okay? Also, please make sure that you click Reduce. If you click Residue, and I can actually show you just so that we can we can have a laugh. Let's go ahead and click Residue. Okay. Oh my gosh, it's going to be so wonderful. We'll have the super clip. Oh no, everything's gone. All right, so that is the difference between residue and reduce. Let's go ahead and click now. We're going to do another quick key, Control Z, undo, okay? Pretty much the same as almost all of the quick keys that you know if you've used anything, like if you used Excel, pretty much all those quick keys can be used here. So we just did Control Z to undo what we've done. If some of you do not feel comfortable using keystrokes, just go on to Edit. You know, we can use that. All right, so moving right along, we are going to go back to Effect, Noise Removal and Repair, Noise Reduction again. Oh my. Let's pretend that didn't happen. Noise Reduction again. We've got everything on 6. We will move it to Reduce here and then press OK. All right. And ideally what you'll see is, now again, please remember that I processed this. What you'll see is a lot of this, you can see some random noise here, and a lot of that will disappear, you know, and gives you a much cleaner sound. Again, this is not, unless the production company tells you, okay, this is not something that is advisable. If a sound engineer wants to take it into their own hands to do something like that, that is something that they should have the flexibility to do. It really is no good for you to be processing your work and then sending it over, because if you do something wrong, not only does it cost the production company money, because now they have to spend extra time basically communicating with you, asking for a raw file, it also wastes your time, because if you don't have said raw file, you will end up having to record whatever they asked you to do again. So we've got noise removal and repair. You know, play around with it yourself. Probably don't send it to a production company for any of the gigs that you book. All right, the next thing that we're going to do is loudness normalization. Now, this will give you an option to basically bring any very low volume audio. It'll help you increase, and it's not even really the gain. It'll help you increase the volume. Okay. Now, one of the bad things about something like this is it also increases any of the ambient noise. So it's everything in the file. It will not just be the pieces of audio that you really like. So here is loudness normalization. Remember, like I said, the closer it gets to that 0, the louder it's going to be. So let's just go ahead and screw around with this and make it negative 12.0 decibels. Negative 12 is sitting right around here, which is really where you would want audio to peak when you are being loud, not all of your audio. So let's try it, shall we? Oh my, that looks terrifying. So now let's go ahead and play it.
Hi y'all, today on Meal Prep Monday, we are doing lentils.
Bad, right? All right, so we're gonna pretend that didn't happen. Do Control Z once again. Okay, the next feature that I'm gonna go ahead and show you exists at the very bottom of your interface. So this here is the playback speed button, which is very helpful if you're trying to review, let's just say, I use it all the time for audiobooks. If you're trying to review a chapter and you want to do it quickly, honestly, one of the best features, this will go up to 3 times the speed. I do not recommend you trying to listen back for that because it'll be very difficult for you to catch any mistakes that you make. I want to say, especially if you're just starting out, why don't you set that right around 1.5 times the speed. So let's listen to what that sounds like, huh?
Hi y'all, today on Meal Prep Monday, we are doing mental stuff sweet potato.
Okay, so that's a little sped up, not super sped up though. All right, now let's go ahead and put it to 2 and see what that sounds like because it's going to be really funny. You'll have a good time. Right? All right, so we set. Okay. So as you can see, 2 times the speed is a little too quick for you to really be able to catch your mistakes. That's why I'm saying try to keep it around that 1.5. All right. So now we understand how to speed up our audio if we're just trying to review it. We understand the proper levels that you want to keep your volume at up here. And we understand things that you're not supposed to do, but if you want to do it in your spare time, you can, such as noise removal and repair and loudness normalization. For more advanced users, we can go into noise gate, but this is kind of a beginner lesson, so I'm not going to waste time with that. Okay, next. We are going to go ahead. I'm going to turn this up just so that I can hear a little bit better because the audio is playing on my speaker and I am listening on my headphones, which actually seems very silly. And this is a wonderful time for me to teach people about audio setup. Sorry about that. All right, so in the upper left-hand corner, we have got audio setup. Audio setup is a feature that will show you your playback device. So I can go ahead and so essentially that would be your speakers, your headphones, which I think will be here. Yes, it is. That's awesome. And any other devices that would count as output audio for your machine, whether it's a laptop, a computer, you can't use this on tablets. So now we're going to go ahead and move on to recording device. Now, recording device is what you're going to be using to link your computer to your microphone, basically. So the chain generally goes microphone, audio interface. I'll go ahead and show you what mine is right here. This is an SSL2 USB audio interface. Hopefully you can see that. Then computer, and then the exported file. All right. So what we're selecting now is we just want to make sure that we're using the correct input for that SSL2. Mine is sitting in the second channel, and so this is correct. And then the recording channels, really quick, for anything that you're doing, if you're doing anything with instrumentals or with, or with vocals that you're singing, for anything musical, you probably want to go ahead and select stereo. Voiceover publishers or pretty much anybody I've worked with prefers mono files. So now, unfortunately, I am not advanced enough to understand exactly why. I just know that's what the preference is. All right. So now I don't need to do what I was doing before. I can go ahead and put this volume back at 0 because now I can hear everything. This is actually a really wonderful lesson in how to figure out if your setup is working correctly. because very often when you're listening to something, especially when you first started, what'll happen is when your playback device will accidentally be your output in an output for your headphones inside of your booth. And so you'll be trying to play your audio and you don't know why you can't hear anything. So it's actually a very good lesson that I did not really even intend to teach. All right, so now we've gone over loudness normalization, we've gone over noise reduction, we've gone over the signal flow to understand that. In general, this video really is for people that are just beginning. And so normally people that are just starting with voiceover at least won't have audio interfaces yet. Generally they'll have USB mics. So for the purpose of this lesson and in the interest of time, I'm not going to go over things such as, the gain that you would want to have on your audio interface, which really we want to have it at like about 6 out of 10. All right, I'll show you really quick. All right, so these knobs right here adjust the gain for whatever channels that you're, working with. This one right here is going to be our, this is going to be the sound this is essentially going to be the level of the way that the microphone is going to communicate with this. Right now, you'll see it's at about 6. It can go up to 10. It is not advisable to have it all the way up to 10. It is not advisable to have it all the way at 0, 1, 2, 3. You want to keep it right at that 6 mark, and that's going to give you the sound that you need. And if you need to adjust it later on, or if the sound engineer needs to adjust it, it's not going to be too quiet that they can't do with it, and it's not going to be too loud that they're going to be like, what the? So, moving along. What we can go through now is how to edit out work. So I'm going to go ahead and play Okay, so let's pretend that we don't want 2 avocados that I'm de-seeding, okay? So what we're going to do is we're going to select this area, make sure that it's correct. So all I've done is taken my right mouse, the left mouse button, held it down, and selected my audio. And now let's see if I selected right. Okay. So let's pretend we don't want this here. What we can do now is do a Control Shift key, so we can do a quick key, Control B. B will allow you to create a mark there. So we'll put remove. This is how you can create notes for yourself, especially if you're reviewing a very long chapter and you want to go back afterwards and delete things that you don't find desirable in the file, or perhaps absolute mistakes. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and mark that for remove. And there's a couple of ways that we can remove it. There's actually, there's a couple of ways. The first way is just to do Control X. Super simple. And then making sure that the audio transitions seamlessly afterwards. This is not going to, this is just an example. Oh shit, actually it does. Wow. All right. Anyway, so what you want to make sure of is that these 2 segments now, they sound as though they could be a cohesive sentence. I got very lucky. Check it out. Okay. I would recommend for beginners, honestly, this really is going to be the best technique, because the other ones involve it involves you processing the audio. So what we can also do is we can generate an effect, we can generate up here in the top menu, a silence. Generate, that does remove the audio, but it doesn't create proper spacing. So you still have to Control X. And then more importantly, listen to this. I'll turn it up so that you can hear what a silence sounds like versus regular room noise. So here's regular room noise. Okay. Here is what a silence sounds like. It's dead silence. Have y'all ever watched that movie, Dead Silence? It's like that. So you can't hear anything. And again, you're processing audio, and that isn't what your sound engineer is going to want. So let's go ahead and do Control Z a couple of times until this is all over. And then we're going to do Control X, because that is probably going to be the best way that you can get rid of your audio. Now, There's another way, again, not advisable to do, but you can go ahead and use our friendly feature, which is loudness normalization. And what you could do for this is you could go ahead and put it at like -60, right? Because remember, the further away from 0 it is, the quieter it is. So let's apply that. Oh, wow, this is almost gone. Okay, great. Okay, so you could go ahead and do that. I think if I were to put it at like -100 or something, it would completely remove the audio. But again, you are processing it. Don't do that. So this is going to be your best friend. Control X. All right. And let's go ahead and listen to this sentence that I very luckily was able to put together to make it sound like it could really be an actual sentence. Sweet, juicy meat. Anyway, all right, Control Z. So that's one of the first things, or actually, it's really the most important thing for you as a, let's say if you're a voice actor and you're just editing, you're just doing punch and roll for your work. What that generally means is that you're pressing record, you're going into the booth, or you have a sound engineer that's pressing record for you. You come back out, or the sound engineer stops you when you make a mistake. And if you're by yourself, you would review your audio, you would select areas that are not correct, and you would go ahead and try to merge two segments together to make something complete. Oftentimes when you're first starting out, what this is going to entail is you actually re-recording yourself, but sometimes you can come up with little hacks to go ahead and figure out when you've messed something up. So let me go ahead and give you an example. I'm going to read this. Signal flow, overflow, 14 minutes. Okay, I've screwed that up, right? What you can do when you screw something up is you can create a trigger word for yourself. What I have done for myself is I created the trigger word redo. So if I screw something up, for example, signal flow, overview, redo, 15 minutes. Now, if I'm reviewing my audio, that redo is going to stick out because it honestly doesn't really exist in any text. Anyway, so trigger words like that, anything that sounds special, pineapple, Street Fighter. I have a Street Fighter arcade game next to me right now. Anything that that is not a regular word, that can be your trigger word or trigger phrase if you want to have multiple words, like Street Fighter. That's a multiple word. Anyway, but yeah, all of that, what that will do is if you are listening to your file, especially at a higher speed or quicker speed than what your normal sounding voice is, it really does capture your attention. Sometimes we get distracted. We're human beings. So that's kind of essentially what punch and roll is in a nutshell. There's a little bit more to it to that, but as a beginner, this is going to suffice for you. So now finally, with the last 7 minutes, what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about the difference between saving a project and exporting a file. So right now, we're going to go ahead and save this as a project. Now, what that means is essentially everything that exists within this program right now, within this session, will come right back up after you save it. Now, for me, I don't save to the cloud. And the only reason why I don't save to the cloud is even though it says it's free here, when I've tried it before, there's some kind of I think it's like maybe $8 to $20 a month. And I wasn't into that. So I go ahead and save it on my computer. What I would recommend is if you are doing voiceover work, especially for audiobooks, you might want to get an external hard drive because this bad boy can get quite full. Okay. And so what you would want to do is essentially you're going to go ahead and export audio, export it to computer. I'm not going to get into, normally you can browse if you'd like to. I'm not going to do it because I don't want people to see files. So I'm just going to go ahead and name this test. This is a WAV file that is different from a project. That is going to be audio that essentially, if I export it, and I'm going to go ahead and put it in. So I got to put it, there we go. I'll put it in downloads. Okay. So I will go ahead and export this. Exporting best practices is going to be a sample rate of 44,100 Hertz, and then encoding 16-bit PCM, or they could ask you to do 32 or 64-bit float, but I usually try to keep it at 16-bit in case unless somebody asks otherwise. So now we're going to export that. And basically what we'd be able to do is go back into downloads. You guys are being able to see all of my business right now, which sucks. I think I'll probably blur this out before I send it to put it on YouTube. And then we should be able to see where the test file right here. We should be able to open it up. There we go. And now we can hear the file. So let's go ahead and get out of this and show you the difference between that and saving a project. We'll go ahead and save a project here, save it to your computer, and let's just say desktop, save, test, save. All right. And now let's check this out. We'll exit out of everything. And let's go ahead and see if we can find the file. Where's test? Where are you? Oh, there you go. All right, so now we're gonna go ahead and click test and check out what happens. It's very different. Windows Media Player or whatever player you would have does not open up. This is what happens. Huzzah! Now we're gonna skip all of this nonsense. And as you can see, literally everything that I just had in this project talked to you about exists right here, right now. Right here, right now. Anyway, so that is the difference between exporting a file, which is something that you would probably send to a sound engineer, and saving a project. And saving a project is very helpful, especially if you're doing voiceover work on very long chapters. You might have to stop and take a break. Some chapters, especially prologues, can be like over an hour long to record. That's not what it comes out to, but it's like over an hour to record it. So in those situations, you would want to go ahead, if you need to, take a break, rest your voice. My best recommendation would be to please review the audio before you start reading again. You'd be very surprised at how quickly that you can forget a character voice. So basically, that is Audacity in a nutshell. I would love to hear if you all found this video useful. Please go ahead and take time to, like, subscribe, do all that stuff that you're supposed to do if you appreciate the content. Otherwise, I will see you another time, and I hope you enjoyed what I had to offer. Thanks.
Thanks for tuning in to Catwa with Catherine. Keep creating, keep growing.